The first thing people notice about my daughter's hearing aid is the faint whistle it sometimes makes when she hugs someone too tightly. Most people pretend not to notice it. At family dinners, though, pretending has never been my family's strength. We were halfway through dinner when it happened. Plates half empty, voices layered on top of each other, the usual rhythm of my parents' dining room. My daughter, Leela, was sitting between my husband and me, turning her fork slowly through mashed potatoes while she listened carefully to everything around her. Listening is work for her. You can see it in the way she tilts her head, in the extra second she takes before answering. My sister noticed the sound first. A thin electronic squeal slipped out of Leela's hearing aid when she leaned forward to reach for the bread. My sister paused, then leaned back in her chair and exaggerated the noise. A long, drawn-out Huey pitched high enough that the room quieted for a moment. Then she laughed. It wasn't loud. It wasn't cruel in the way strangers imagine cruelty. It was casual, effortless. The kind of laugh that expects everyone else to follow. My mother looked down at her plate. My brother smirked into his glass. Someone made a vague comment about technology these days. Leela froze for half a second, not hurt exactly. Just alert. Children like her learn early how quickly attention can shift toward them. I waited. There's always a moment at a table like that when you expect someone older to step in. My father had always been the referee of family disagreements, the one who corrected things before they got ugly. He looked at me instead. I think he saw the expression on my face. Then he shrugged. "Oh, come on," he said, waving his hand slightly. "It's just a joke. Lighten up." The words landed heavier than my sister's imitation, because jokes can be mistakes, but dismissals are decisions. Leela lowered her eyes back to her plate and carefully adjusted the small device behind her ear, the motion practiced enough that she probably didn't even realize she was doing it. I felt something rise in my chest, the familiar argument between speaking and staying quiet. Families train you in silence long before you notice it. Across the table, my husband had stopped eating. He hadn't said anything all evening, which was normal for him with my family. He never tried to dominate the room the way my siblings did. When he spoke, it was usually to Leela. He watched my sister for a few seconds. Then he looked at my father. No anger, no raised voice, just a long, steady look that made the room subtly uncomfortable. He placed his napkin beside his plate and stood up. The chair scraped softly against the floor. Everyone paused, expecting a speech or a confrontation. Instead, he walked to the front door. He opened it. The cool night air drifted into the house. Then he turned back toward the table. "That's enough for tonight," he said calmly. No yelling, no explanation. Just the quiet certainty of someone who had already made the decision. For a moment, nobody moved. My sister laughed again, but this time it sounded confused. "Seriously?" My father frowned like he'd just been mildly inconvenienced. Oh, for don't be dramatic. But my husband didn't argue. He just waited beside the open door. Something about the stillness of it made the room feel different, like the rules had shifted and nobody had been told yet. My mother stood first. She gathered her purse slowly, avoiding eye contact with anyone. My brother followed, muttering something under his breath. My sister walked past my husband with an annoyed shake of her head. People are so sensitive now. My father was the last one out. He stopped in the doorway and looked back at me like he expected me to apologize on my husband's behalf. I didn't. The door closed behind them. The house was quiet again. Leela looked up at my husband. "Are they mad?" she asked softly. He walked back to the table and knelt beside her chair. "They might be," he said. She thought about that for a moment. "Okay." Then she picked up her fork again. That was the end of the night. Or at least I thought it was. The next morning my phone started buzzing before I even finished my coffee. 3 missed calls from my father. 2 from my sister. A long message from my brother. I didn't read them immediately. My husband was already dressed for work, sitting at the kitchen table reviewing something on his laptop. "What happened?" I asked. He looked up, mildly surprised by the question. "I sent your dad an email this morning." "About last night?" Not exactly. He turned the laptop slightly so I could see the screen. It was a formal letter, short, professional. For the past 6 months, my husband had been helping my father stabilize his construction company, quietly reviewing contracts, renegotiating debts, putting together a recovery plan my father didn't fully understand but trusted because of my husband's experience. It had never been a family favor. It had been a professional arrangement. And now it was over. The email explained that he would no longer be acting as advisor or legal representative for the business, not out of anger, but because, as the letter carefully phrased it, professional partnerships require a foundation of mutual respect within the broader working relationship. My father had signed several documents months earlier that gave my husband authority to manage negotiations with creditors. Without him, those negotiations would stop, not permanently, but immediately. I stared at the screen. "You did that because of dinner." He closed the laptop gently. "I did that because of Leela." There was no pride in his voice, no sense of revenge. Just the calm clarity of someone who had already decided where the boundary was. My phone buzzed again. Another message from my father. This one shorter. Just 3 words. "Call me back." Leela walked into the kitchen a few minutes later, still in her pajamas, adjusting the small hearing aid behind her ear. She smiled when she saw us. And for the first time in a long while, she didn't glance nervously toward the door like she expected the room to turn on her again. The silence at dinner hadn't protected her, but something else had. Not loud, not dramatic, just quiet, undeniable loyalty. And now everyone in my family was beginning to understand exactly what that looked like.